Have you ever noticed how your entire day can be thrown off by a single negative comment, a traffic jam, or a piece of bad news? You start the morning with the best intentions, a clear plan, and a sense of calm, only to find that by lunchtime, you feel reactive, anxious, and completely off balance. It's a frustratingly common experience in our modern world, where we're bombarded with constant stimuli and pressures that seem designed to knock us off center. We chase after quick fixes, mindfulness apps, and productivity hacks, searching for that elusive state of emotional equilibrium, only to find it slips through our fingers just when we think we've grasped it. This struggle for inner peace isn't a new one. In fact, nearly 2,000 years ago, a Roman emperor was grappling with the very same human challenges, and he left behind a powerful roadmap for navigating them. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That single sentence contains a profound truth that we're going to explore together. It's a truth that forms the bedrock of Stoicism, an ancient philosophy that is remarkably, powerfully practical for our modern lives. Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotion or living a joyless, stone-faced existence. It's a proactive operating system for the mind, a set of mental technologies designed to build unshakable resilience and a deep, lasting sense of calm from the inside out. This video is your guide to uncovering 23 hidden habits of emotionally balanced people, habits that are deeply aligned with these Stoic principles. These aren't just random actions or to-do list items. They are fundamental mindsets, ways of seeing and interacting with the world that gradually rewire your emotional responses. We are going to journey through core Stoic ideas like the crucial dichotomy of control, which teaches us to invest our energy only in what we can truly influence. We'll delve into practices that build resilience, allowing you to not just endure setbacks but to use them as fuel for growth. We'll explore the art of cultivating presence, of fully inhabiting your life without being haunted by the past or anxious about the future. And most importantly, we will translate these grand principles into simple, actionable steps you can start integrating into your own daily life, beginning today. This is an invitation to move beyond just managing your emotions and to start mastering them, to build an inner citadel of peace that no external circumstance can easily breach. What's the first thing that enters your mind when you wake up in the morning? Is it a mental checklist of everything you need to accomplish, or perhaps a low hum of anxiety about a difficult conversation you need to have, or a project deadline that feels overwhelming? For many of us, our mornings are dominated by a swirl of worries about what could go wrong. But what if you could transform that anxious mental chatter into a source of profound strength and calm? The Stoics developed a powerful technique for exactly this purpose, a practice they called Premeditatio Malorum, which translates to the premeditation of evils. Now, before you dismiss this as some kind of negative thinking exercise, it's crucial to understand the profound psychological shift that makes this habit so effective. This is not about pessimism or expecting the worst to happen. It is a form of mental inoculation. Think of it like this. If you were going to run a marathon, you wouldn't just show up on race day without any training. You would condition your body, you would run in the rain, you would push through fatigue, so that when the actual race arrives, you are prepared. The premeditation of evils is the exact same principle applied to your mind. It is a deliberate, controlled rehearsal for adversity, designed to strengthen your psychological immune system so that when life inevitably throws a challenge your way, you are not caught off guard and thrown into emotional chaos. You have already been there in your mind, and you have already navigated it. The Stoic philosopher Seneca captured the essence of this practice perfectly when he wrote, "He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand." By anticipating a potential setback, you drain it of its element of surprise and its accompanying emotional shock. The blow, when it comes, is softer because you have already accepted its possibility. Let's make this incredibly practical. Imagine you have a crucial work presentation today. Instead of just hoping it goes perfectly, you take 5 quiet minutes in the morning to consciously premeditate. You visualize your laptop crashing right before you begin. You mentally walk through the steps of staying calm, using a backup USB drive or speaking from your notes without the slides. You picture someone in the audience asking a deeply critical, almost hostile question. In your mind's eye, you see yourself pausing, taking a breath, and responding with respect and clarity, focusing on the substance of the question rather than the tone. You might even imagine the presentation falling completely flat with no engagement from the room, and then you visualize yourself accepting that outcome with grace, understanding that your worth is not determined by a single performance and focusing on what you can learn from the experience. By doing this, you are not inviting these events to happen. You are simply building a mental fortress around your peace of mind. If everything goes beautifully, you experience the joy of a smooth process. But if something does go wrong, you are not devastated. You are prepared. You have already lived through the scenario and your nervous system remains regulated. So here is a challenge for you. As you finish this segment, bring to mind one specific challenge you anticipate facing tomorrow. It could be a difficult commute, a tough conversation with a family member, or a task you've been procrastinating on. Now, instead of just worrying about it, actively pre-accept it. Mentally play out the scenario where it happens and see yourself handling it with composure and resilience. Notice how simply shifting your perspective from dreading a possibility to preparing for it changes the entire emotional texture of the thought. The single most powerful habit for emotional balance is knowing what you can and cannot control. This is the very heart of Stoic wisdom, a fundamental principle that, when truly internalized, acts like a switch that can turn off a significant portion of your daily anxiety and frustration. Think about the last time you felt truly stressed or upset. Chances are that emotional turmoil was directly linked to something you had little to no actual control over. We exhaust ourselves trying to manage other people's opinions, the flow of traffic, the outcome of a business deal, or even the weather. We invest our precious mental and emotional energy into these external events, and when they don't go our way, we feel cheated, angry, or defeated. The core insight from Stoicism is that this is a fundamental misallocation of our resources. The philosopher Epictetus, a former slave who founded one of the most influential Stoic schools, opened his manual for life, the Enchiridion, with this very distinction. He wrote, "Some things are within our power while others are not. Within our power are opinion, motivation, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever is of our own doing. Not within our power are our body, our property, our reputation, our office, and, in a word, whatever is not of our own doing." Let's break down what this means for you today. What is truly, unequivocally within your control, your judgments, how you choose to interpret an event. Your actions, the effort you put forth, the choices you make, your values, what you decide to care about and pursue, and your character, the kind of person you strive to be. Everything else, the past, the future, what other people say and do, the economy, the news, whether your flight is delayed, falls squarely into the category of things not within your control. This isn't a philosophical suggestion. It's a practical boundary for your peace of mind. When you find yourself stressed about being stuck in traffic, ask yourself this simple question: can I, at this very moment, magically dissolve the cars in front of me and clear the road? The answer is no. That is not within your control. But what is within your control? You can control your reaction. You can choose to use the time to listen to an audiobook or a podcast you enjoy. You can take deep, calming breaths instead of clenching the steering wheel and raising your blood pressure. You can decide to call a family member to catch up. You shift your focus from the immovable external event to your entirely movable internal response. The same principle applies to receiving critical feedback at work. The feedback itself, the word spoken or written, is an external event. It has happened. You cannot control that it was given, but you have complete sovereignty over your judgment of that feedback. Do you interpret it as a personal attack, sending you into a spiral of self-doubt and defensiveness? Or do you judge it as potentially useful data, a chance to learn and improve? Your subsequent actions are also within your control. You can choose to dismiss it angrily, or you can choose to reflect on it, extract any valuable nuggets of truth, and implement changes. The emotional difference between these two approaches is the difference between a day ruined and a day of growth. This habit requires constant, conscious practice. It's not a one-time realization, but a continuous filter you apply to your experiences. The goal is to catch yourself in the moment of distress and perform this quick mental sorting. To build this skill, take a moment right now. Grab a piece of paper or open a notes app on your phone. Write down 3 things that are currently causing you stress. Now draw a line down the center of your page. On one side, label it within my control. On the other, not within my control. Now place each of your 3 stressors into its appropriate column. Is your stress about an upcoming job interview? The interviewer's final decision goes in the not within my control column. But your preparation, your research on the company, the way you present yourself, and the effort you put into your answers, all of that belongs firmly in the within my control column. See where your energy is currently going. This simple act of categorization is the first, most powerful step toward reclaiming your emotional stability. How often do you look back on a tense moment and wish you had handled it differently? That instant when a colleague makes a snide remark or you receive an infuriating message, and before you even have a chance to think, a sharp retort flies out of your mouth or your fingers type a reply you immediately regret. We've all been there, caught in that flash of heat where emotion takes the wheel and reason is left in the dust. This is precisely where our third habit comes into play, a practice the Stoics would have recognized as the essence of temperance and the disciplined withholding of assent. It's about consciously creating a buffer zone, a mindful pause between the initial trigger and your final response. Marcus Aurelius provided a beautifully clear mental image for this when he advised himself, the first step, don't be panicked. Your ruling reason will rise to the occasion, provided it isn't habitually panicked by outside impressions. The second step, remember to act with dignity and in accordance with your human nature. He is describing that critical space, the gap between something happening and you deciding what it means and how you will behave. Your initial impression, that feeling of anger, hurt, or defensiveness, is automatic and often uncontrollable. It's a physiological and psychological reaction, but the Stoic secret is that you are not obligated to agree with that initial impression. You don't have to build a whole story around it or let it dictate your actions. You can simply notice it, observe it with curiosity, and then, from that place of observation, choose a more reasoned, more virtuous path forward. Think of it like this: someone throws a log into a calm pond. The immediate splash is your initial emotional reaction. It's inevitable. but the ripples that spread out across the water, those are your subsequent thoughts and actions. The mindful pause is the moment you watch the splash happen without immediately throwing more logs in to create bigger waves. You allow the initial disturbance to settle, giving the water a chance to return to clarity before you decide what to do next. This is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming the master of your emotions rather than letting them master you. Let's translate this into a situation almost everyone faces today: the provoking email. Your inbox pings with a message from a client or a coworker. The tone is accusatory, the content feels unfair, and you can feel the heat rising in your cheeks. Your initial, powerful impression is one of injustice and anger. The impulsive reaction is to hit reply immediately and fire off a defensive, equally sharp message to set the record straight. This is the moment for the pause. Instead of clicking reply, you close the email. You physically push your chair back from your desk, if only for a moment. You take one single, deep, intentional breath, focusing on the sensation of the air filling your lungs and then slowly leaving your body. This simple, physical act of breathing creates the neurological space you need. It interrupts the fight or flight cascade and brings your prefrontal cortex, the center of rational thought, back online. In that space, you can ask yourself a few Stoic questions. What is within my control here? I cannot control the other person's words or attitude, but I can control my response. Is my initial impression telling me the whole truth? Perhaps this person is under immense stress themselves, and this is a misdirected outburst. What would a wise and temperate response look like? Maybe it's an email that acknowledges their concern without accepting blame, suggests a call to discuss it calmly, or simply states that you've received their message and will respond more fully after you've had time to consider it. The content of the response is less important than the process. The victory is in the pause itself. You have successfully inserted your rational faculty between the external event and your internal world, protecting your peace and acting with intention. To start weaving this habit into the fabric of your daily life, make a commitment to yourself right now. The very next time you feel that familiar surge of a strong emotion, whether it's frustration in a line, anger in a conversation, or anxiety from a notification, give yourself the gift of a 1-minute pause. Do not speak, do not type, just breathe for 60 seconds. In that minute, you are not being passive. You are actively practicing one of the most powerful skills for emotional balance there is. The day is over. Now is the time for honest accounting. Not an accounting of your productivity or your bank balance, but an accounting of your character. While the previous habit of the mindful pause helps you navigate individual moments, this next practice is about learning from the entire collection of moments that made up your day. The Stoics called this their evening review, and it was a non-negotiable part of their philosophical routine. Think of it as a daily debrief for your soul, a quiet conversation with yourself aimed not at self-flagellation but at steady, incremental self-improvement. The great Roman statesman and Stoic philosopher Seneca was a devoted practitioner of this habit. In one of his letters to his friend Lucilius, he describes his nightly ritual with beautiful clarity. He wrote, "When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now become mine, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by." He was essentially conducting a gentle, thorough audit of his own mind and behavior. The purpose of this is profound. You are not sitting in judgment of yourself as a flawed human being. You are sitting as a compassionate coach reviewing the game tape, looking for patterns, celebrating good plays, and identifying specific areas where your technique could be sharper for the next match. This process transforms your lived experience into raw material for wisdom. Instead of days simply passing by in a blur, each one becomes a deliberate lesson, a stepping stone on the path to greater emotional balance and virtue. The goal is to close the gap between knowing the Stoic principles intellectually and actually living them when it counts. So, how do you actually do this without it becoming another burdensome item on your to-do list? The key is to keep it simple, structured, and focused. A powerful framework is to ask yourself just 3 core questions each night. First, what did I do well today? This is where you actively look for the wins, no matter how small. Did you manage to take that mindful pause before responding to a frustrating email? Did you practice the dichotomy of control when you were stuck in traffic and chose to listen to an audiobook instead of fuming? Did you act with kindness toward a stranger or a difficult family member? Acknowledging these successes is crucial. It reinforces the positive behaviors you are trying to cultivate and reminds you that progress is possible. The second question requires a bit more courage. Where did I let externals disturb my peace? Be specific and honest with yourself. Did a critical comment from a coworker ruin your afternoon? Did you spend hours anxiously worrying about a future event that is entirely outside your control? Did you chase after a desire for recognition or a new possession, only to feel emptier afterward? The point here is not to berate yourself. The point is to pinpoint the exact moment your judgment was hijacked by an external impression. You are identifying the weak spot in your mental armor so you can consciously strengthen it tomorrow. The final question is forward-looking. How can I improve tomorrow? This is where you turn reflection into resolution. Based on your answers to the first 2 questions, set a simple, concrete intention for the coming day. If you noticed you were easily irritated by interruptions, your intention for tomorrow might be, I will view each interruption not as a nuisance, but as an opportunity to practice patience. If you saw that you got drawn into office gossip, your intention could be, I will steer conversations toward more constructive topics. This isn't about creating a long list of demands. It's about choosing one single area to bring more awareness and virtue into. This entire process need not take more than 5 minutes. You can do it lying in bed before you sleep or sitting with a notebook in a quiet corner. The medium doesn't matter, the honest engagement does. By doing this, you are effectively composting the events of your day, even the difficult and messy ones, and turning them into fertile soil for your future growth. You are learning from your mistakes without being defined by them, and you are building on your strengths with conscious recognition. So, as you finish listening to this, make a commitment to yourself. Before you go to sleep tonight, give yourself the gift of those 5 minutes. Close your eyes, revisit the key moments of your day, and ask yourself those 3 simple questions. This single habit, practiced consistently, will become one of the most powerful tools you possess for crafting a life of greater wisdom, purpose, and unshakable calm. What if seeking a little discomfort was the key to greater emotional strength? This might sound completely counterintuitive. Our entire modern world is engineered for comfort and convenience, from smart thermostats that maintain the perfect temperature to apps that deliver hot food to our door in minutes. We spend our lives trying to avoid hardship, and yet we often feel more fragile and anxious than ever. The Stoics identified this paradox 2,000 years ago. They understood that a life dedicated solely to comfort is a life primed for fragility. When your peace of mind is dependent on everything going smoothly, on every external condition being just right, you have built your house on sand. The first strong wind of adversity will knock it over. This is where the powerful habit of voluntary discomfort comes in. It is the deliberate practice of occasionally stepping out of your comfort zone in small, controlled ways to toughen your resolve and, perhaps more importantly, to recalibrate your appreciation for the ordinary blessings you usually take for granted. The Stoic teacher Musonius Rufus was a strong proponent of this, arguing that comfort and luxury make the spirit weak. He famously said, "In order to become strong, we must be in the habit of welcoming the opposite of luxury, to be thirsty occasionally and hungry, and to eat and drink when it is time, using only the cheapest and most ordinary food." He wasn't advocating for a life of ascetic poverty, but for a life of resilience. The goal is to voluntarily experience small hardships so that when life inevitably forces larger ones upon you, you are not thrown into a tailspin. You have already proven to yourself that you can handle discomfort, that you can endure cold or hunger or a minor inconvenience and emerge completely unscathed on the other side. This practice does two profound things simultaneously. First, it builds a kind of callus on your mind. Just as a carpenter's hands become toughened by work, your emotional resilience is fortified by willingly facing minor challenges. When your boss suddenly dumps an urgent, stressful project on your desk, it feels less overwhelming because you have a recent memory of consciously pushing through another kind of difficulty, like a tough workout or a cold shower. You have a reservoir of proven strength to draw from. Second, and just as crucially, this habit is a masterclass in gratitude. You don't truly appreciate the warmth of a cozy bed until you have voluntarily stood in a cold shower for 60 seconds. You don't fully savor a simple meal until you have occasionally chosen to skip a snack and feel genuine hunger. By temporarily removing a comfort, you strip away the familiarity that breeds indifference, and you experience that comfort anew, with a sense of genuine thankfulness when you return to it. This isn't about punishing yourself, it's about breaking the spell of taking your good fortune for granted. So, how do you put this into practice without turning your life into a boot camp? The key is to start small and make it manageable. You are not trying to prove anything to anyone else. You are conducting a personal experiment in resilience. One of the most accessible places to begin is with your morning routine. Tomorrow, when you step into the shower, turn the dial to cold for the final 30 seconds. It will be shocking, your heart will race, and your instinct will be to jump out immediately, but stay, breathe through it, observe the sensations without panic. Notice that you are surviving, that the discomfort is temporary, and that when you step out, you feel incredibly awake and alive. That small victory, that conscious choice to endure, sets a powerful tone for your entire day. Another simple practice is to choose to walk or bike a route you would normally drive, even if it takes a bit longer and is less convenient. Feel the slight strain in your legs, the weather on your skin. Or skip a meal, not in an unhealthy way, but simply postpone lunch by an hour or two and observe the sensation of hunger without immediately rushing to satisfy it. Notice the thoughts that arise, the impatience, the mild irritation, and see them as passing weather in your mind, not as commands you must obey. You are demonstrating to yourself that you are not a slave to your every comfort and craving. To truly integrate this Stoic habit, make a specific commitment right now. Look at your week ahead and choose one small, regular comfort you will voluntarily give up. It could be that second cup of coffee in the afternoon, the elevator ride to your office on the 3rd floor, or the habit of scrolling through social media the moment you feel a pang of boredom. For the next 7 days, consciously forego that one thing. Pay close attention not just to the minor discomfort it creates, but more importantly, to the subtle shift in your own sense of agency and strength. Observe how your relationship with that comfort changes when you choose to return to it, appreciating it not as a default entitlement, but as a conscious choice. This is how you build an inner fortitude that remains steady, regardless of what fortune has in store. Now take a moment and picture this in your mind's eye. Imagine you are floating high above the earth, looking down on our planet from the quiet, infinite blackness of space. You see the delicate blue marble suspended in the void, its swirling white clouds and vast oceans. From this vantage point, you can't see national borders, you can't see cities, you certainly can't see your house or your office. All the frantic activity of human life, the traffic jams, the stock market fluctuations, the heated arguments and personal ambitions, is invisible, reduced to silence and stillness. This mental shift, this act of zooming out to a cosmic scale, is a profound Stoic exercise known as the view from above, and it was a regular practice for the Emperor Marcus Aurelius to maintain his tranquility amidst the immense pressures of ruling an empire. He would write in his meditations, "You can rid yourself of many useless things among those that disturb you, for they lie entirely in your imagination, and you will then gain for yourself ample space by comprehending the whole universe in your mind, and by contemplating the eternity of time, and observing the rapid change of every part of everything. How short is the time from birth, dissolution, and the illimitable time before birth, as well as the equally boundless time after dissolution." What he is describing here is the ultimate tool for gaining perspective. When you feel overwhelmed by a personal problem, a conflict with a coworker, anxiety about a financial bill, the sting of a social rejection, that problem can feel like the entire world, consuming your entire field of vision. It looms so large that it seems to block out everything else. The view from above is the conscious decision to pull back the camera, way back, until that massive, intimidating problem is returned to its true, proportionate size. This practice doesn't make your problems disappear, and it's not about dismissing your very real human concerns. It's about contextualizing them. It reminds you that you are a tiny, fleeting part of an incomprehensibly vast and ancient cosmos. The argument you're having is one of billions happening at this moment. The project you're stressed about is one small event in the long march of human history. This realization is incredibly liberating for your ego. So much of our anxiety is tied up with our sense of self-importance, the belief that our performance, our reputation, our personal drama is of monumental significance. The cosmic perspective gently corrects this. It humbles you not by making you feel insignificant, but by showing you that you are a part of something magnificent and endless. Your individual worries, while valid, are not the center of the universe. This detachment is the source of a deep and lasting tranquility because it untethers your emotional state from the narrow, often distorted, story you are telling yourself about your current situation. To bring this from a philosophical concept into a practical tool you can use today, try applying it the next time you feel a wave of overwhelm. Let's say you are lying awake at night, your mind racing because you made a noticeable mistake in a report at work. The feeling of embarrassment and fear of judgment feels all-consuming. This is the perfect moment to activate the view from above. Close your eyes, begin by visualizing your own street, then pull back to see your entire town or city, then your country, then the continent. Keep going until you see the whole Earth just as the astronauts did. Now contemplate the scale of human history. Your life and the life of everyone you know is just a brief flicker in a timeline that spans thousands of years. That report, that single mistake, is one tiny data point in that flicker. Now contemplate the future. 100 years from now, everyone involved in that situation will be gone, and the report itself will be long forgotten dust. This isn't meant to be depressing, it's meant to be freeing. The stakes you feel in this moment are an illusion created by a narrow focus. By widening your lens, you drain the situation of its catastrophic power. The mistake remains, and you can still address it professionally tomorrow, but the paralyzing anxiety around it will have lost its grip. You can now deal with it from a place of calm reason rather than panicked emotion. So, here is your invitation to experiment with this powerful shift in perception. The very next time you are facing a challenge that feels insurmountable, whether it's a personal conflict, a professional setback, or a period of general anxiety. Give yourself just 3 minutes. Sit quietly, close your eyes, and take that mental journey out into the cosmos. Look back at the small, beautiful planet and see your life as a small part of its immense, ongoing story. When you return to your problem, notice how its weight has changed. You haven't run away from it. You've simply given yourself the space to handle it with the clarity and composure you truly possess. Stop fighting your fate and start loving it. This might sound like an impossible command, a call for a kind of blissful ignorance in the face of life's hardships. But the Stoic habit of Amor Fati, a phrase popularized by the philosopher Nietzsche but with deep roots in the wisdom of Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, is anything but passive resignation. It is not about gritting your teeth and enduring misfortune because you have no other choice. That is mere tolerance, and tolerance often comes with a bitter aftertaste of resentment. Amor Fati is a radical step beyond that. It is an active, enthusiastic embrace of everything that life brings you. It is the decision to not just accept your fate, but to fall in love with it, to see every single event, especially the obstacles, the setbacks, and the painful moments, as not only necessary but as the very raw material required for your growth and development. This is the ultimate reframing of your entire life experience. The Stoic emperor Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself of this principle. He wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." Imagine your spirit as that fire. A lesser fire is extinguished by a log that is damp or an unexpected piece of green wood. It sputters and dies, but a blazing, well-built fire consumes it all, the dry tinder and the wet, the perfect logs and the gnarled, knotted ones, and uses every single piece to burn even brighter and hotter. Amor Fati is the commitment to being that blazing fire. It is the conscious choice to use every single thing that happens to you as fuel for your inner strength, your wisdom, and your character. Epictetus, who knew profound hardship as a slave, framed it in terms of working with the materials you are given. He said, "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens happen the way it happens, then you will be happy." This is the core of the shift. You are moving from a state of constant wishing for a different reality to a state of dynamic engagement with the reality you actually have. Your energy is no longer wasted on the futile mental battle against what is already true. Instead, that same energy is redirected into the creative and empowering process of asking, "Given that this has happened, what can I now build with it?" How does this become an advantage? Let's make this intensely practical. Consider the devastating experience of an unexpected job loss. The initial, entirely natural reaction is one of shock, fear, and perhaps even shame. The story you tell yourself might be one of failure, of being unwanted, of a future that has suddenly become uncertain and frightening. This is the point where you have a critical choice. You can remain in that story, fighting against the reality of the situation, which only amplifies the suffering. Or you can practice Amor Fati. You can actively choose to look for the hidden door that this setback has opened. Perhaps this job loss forces you to finally update your resume and portfolio, something you had put off for years in the comfort of your old position. Maybe it pushes you to network more aggressively, leading to connections you would never have made otherwise. It could be the catalyst that makes you reconsider your entire career path, steering you toward work that is more aligned with your true values and talents, work you were too afraid to pursue while comfortably employed. The loss itself is real and painful, but by loving your fate, you transform it from a dead end into a crossroads of opportunity, the project that failed spectacularly. It is not a mark of your incompetence. It is a priceless data set on what does not work, saving you from making the same mistake on a much larger scale in the future. The difficult illness, it can become a profound teacher of patience, a reminder of the fragility of the body, and a clarifier of what relationships and activities are truly essential in your life. Amor Fati is the alchemy that turns the lead of misfortune into the gold of wisdom. To begin integrating this transformative habit into your own life, take a moment for a simple but powerful exercise. Bring to mind one recent difficulty you have faced. It doesn't have to be a major catastrophe. It could be a disagreement with a friend, a missed deadline, or a plan that fell through. Now take out a piece of paper or open a new note on your device. At the top, write down the event. Below it, create space for 3 potential gifts. Challenge yourself to look beyond the surface and identify 3 specific ways this difficulty could be serving you. Perhaps that argument revealed a boundary you need to communicate more clearly. That missed deadline taught you a crucial lesson about your own limits and the need to ask for help sooner. That cancelled trip gave you unexpected, quiet time that you used to reconnect with a neglected hobby. By actively searching for the benefit, you are not pretending the event was pleasant. You are performing a deliberate act of cognitive reframing that strengthens your resilience and ensures that no experience, no matter how challenging, is ever wasted. You are learning to love your fate not because it is always good, but because it is always yours, and it is the only material you have to build a life of profound strength and purpose. Who is your model of perfect wisdom and calm? Is there a person, whether from history, literature, or even your own life, who seems to possess an unshakable inner compass, someone whose judgment you would trust implicitly in a crisis? For the Stoics, this wasn't just an interesting thought experiment. It was a core psychological exercise. They called it the contemplation of the sage, and it involves consciously invoking an idealized figure of perfect wisdom to guide your choices when you feel uncertain or emotionally clouded. This habit is about creating a concrete, internal standard for virtuous behavior. When your own emotions are pulling you in one direction toward anger, fear, or desire, this mental model acts as an anchor, a North Star that helps you realign with your highest principles. The Stoics themselves frequently looked to historical exemplars. They admired Socrates for his unwavering commitment to truth, even when it meant drinking hemlock. They revered Cato the Younger for his absolute integrity, a man whose character was so consistent that his political enemies could find no genuine scandal to use against him. These figures were not seen as mythical gods, but as human beings who had perfected the use of their rational faculty. By asking, "What would Socrates do here?" or "How would Cato handle this?" they were not seeking to mimic these men's specific actions, but to channel their underlying virtue, their courage, their justice, their temperance, and their wisdom. The power of this habit lies in its ability to create a small but crucial gap between your initial impulse and your final action. It forces you to step outside of your own limited, emotionally charged perspective and view the situation through a loftier, more objective lens. Let's bring this into a very common modern scenario dealing with gossip. You're in a conversation and someone begins to speak negatively about a mutual acquaintance who isn't present. There's a pull to join in, to add your own piece of critical observation, to feel that momentary sense of social bonding that comes from shared judgment. This is the perfect moment to apply the sage test. In your mind, you quickly consult your inner sage. You might picture Socrates, known for his relentless pursuit of truth. Would he engage in hearsay and speculation about someone not present to defend themselves? Almost certainly not. He would likely question the very foundation of the gossip, asking for evidence or turning the conversation toward a more constructive topic. Or perhaps you envision Cato, a man of steadfast justice. He would recognize that speaking about someone without their knowledge is a form of injustice, an unfair trial held in absentia. By invoking this mental standard, you are empowered to make a different choice. You might gently change the subject, or you could say something like, I'm not sure we have the full picture, so I'd rather not speculate. The action itself is simple, but the motivation behind it is profound. You are acting from virtue, not from social pressure. Another powerful application is when facing a fear, like the fear of public speaking or the anxiety of a difficult conversation. Your instinct might be to avoid it, to procrastinate, to make excuses. But if you pause and consult your sage, you are reminded that courage is not the absence of fear, but the judgment that something else is more important than that fear. Your inner Kata would walk toward the difficulty because it is the right thing to do, not because it is the easy thing. Your inner sage provides the rational counter-argument to your own irrational panic, giving you the mental fortitude to proceed. This practice transforms abstract philosophy into a living, breathing guide for daily conduct. It makes the virtues of Stoicism personal and actionable. To truly make this habit your own, your task this week is to consciously choose a personal role model for wisdom. It doesn't have to be an ancient philosopher. It could be a respected mentor, a historical leader like Abraham Lincoln, a fictional character like Atticus Finch, or even a composite figure you create from the best qualities of many people. The key is that this figure, in your mind, embodies the calm, rational, and virtuous response to any situation. Then, make a pact with yourself to consciously consult this inner counselor at least once in the coming days when you face a decision, large or small. Before you send that email, have that conversation, or make that choice, take a 10-second pause and ask, what would my sage do? This small act of mental time travel can fundamentally shift your trajectory, moving you from a reactive state to a proactive one, where your actions are chosen, not merely triggered. The pen can be a more powerful tool for peace than any meditation app. While meditation is wonderful for calming the mind and creating space, journaling is a form of active philosophy. It is where you take that calm space and begin to actively build a more resilient and rational mental structure within it. This is a dialogue with your deepest self, a way to untangle the knotted threads of your thoughts and examine the raw impressions that so often dictate your emotional state without your conscious consent. When a troubling feeling arises, a spike of anxiety, a simmering resentment, a vague sense of dread, it can feel like an impenetrable fog. Trying to simply think your way through it is often like trying to grab smoke. But when you take a pen to paper or your fingers to a keyboard, you are forced to externalize that fog. You give it form and shape in language, and in doing so, you instantly gain a degree of separation from it. You are no longer completely identified with the chaotic thought. You are now an observer, a scientist studying a fascinating and sometimes messy psychological specimen. This act of externalization is the first and most crucial step toward clarity. The Stoics understood this power intimately. We are incredibly fortunate that the private journal of a Roman emperor has survived for nearly 2 millennia, giving us a direct window into this practice. The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius were never intended for publication. They were his personal workbook, his gymnasium for the mind. On its pages, we see him constantly wrestling with his own judgments, reminding himself of core principles and admonishing himself when he falls short. He wasn't writing for an audience. He was writing to reason with himself, to solidify his Stoic insights and apply them to the immense pressures of ruling an empire, dealing with treacherous senators, and leading armies on the frontier. His journal was his anchor, the place where he returned to his center again and again. He would write things like, "Today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil." This wasn't a complaint, It was a preparatory note, a way of setting his expectations according to reason so that he wouldn't be surprised or emotionally derailed by the predictable failings of others. This is the essence of philosophical journaling. It's not a diary of events, but a logbook of your judgments and your efforts to align them with virtue. To make this a practical habit in your own life, you don't need to write a lengthy thesis every day. A simple, structured approach can yield profound results. Start by creating 2 columns on your page. In the first column, write down a specific troubling impression that is currently occupying your mind. Be brutally honest and precise. Don't just write, "I'm stressed about work." Drill down, write, "The impression that my presentation tomorrow will be a failure and my colleagues will think I'm incompetent." This act of precise labeling alone diminishes the power of the vague, free-floating anxiety. Now move to the second column. This is where you apply the tool of reason, acting as your own Stoic coach. Here you dissect the initial impression. Ask yourself questions rooted in Stoic principles. First, is this event within my control? The opinions of my colleagues are not within my control. Their judgment is their own. What is within my control is the quality of my preparation, the clarity of my slides, and the effort I put into delivering the presentation with confidence. By categorizing this, you immediately redirect your energy from the uncontrollable to the controllable. Next, challenge the underlying belief. Is it true that a single presentation defines my entire competence? Of course not. My worth is internal, based on my character and my consistent efforts, not on a single external outcome. What is the worst that can realistically happen? And if that worst-case scenario occurred, could I handle it? The answer is almost always yes. This process of written dialogue transforms a swirling, emotional threat into a manageable set of rational propositions. It moves the problem from the emotional brain to the prefrontal cortex, where it can be dealt with logically. The anxiety may not vanish completely, but it will no longer be in the driver's seat. To truly experience the clarifying power of this habit, I challenge you to a simple 1-week experiment. Each morning, before the day's demands crash in upon you, take just 5 minutes to write a single paragraph. But this paragraph has a specific focus, your intentions for the day. Don't write a to-do list of tasks, write a to-be list of character. For example, you might write, "Today, my intention is to practice patience, especially in long meetings. I will focus on the process of doing my work with excellence, regardless of the recognition I receive. When I feel the urge to complain, I will pause and look for the opportunity within the obstacle instead." This sets a philosophical GPS for your day. You are programming your mind to look for specific opportunities to practice virtue. You will be amazed at how, once you've written it down, you suddenly start to notice those very opportunities appearing throughout your day, and you'll be more prepared to meet them with wisdom rather than reacting with old, habitual patterns. This is how you build clarity from the inside out, 1 paragraph at a time. You prepared perfectly for that presentation, spending hours on research, crafting clear slides, and rehearsing your delivery until it felt effortless. You walked into the room confident, you presented your points with clarity and passion, and you handled every question with poise. And yet, for reasons entirely beyond your grasp, the client decided to go with another company. The deal fell through. How do you feel in that moment? If you're like most people, a wave of deflation and frustration crashes over you. All that hard work, all that meticulous preparation feels instantly wasted. This gut-wrenching experience, which we've all faced in one form or another, highlights a fundamental source of our emotional turmoil, our deep-seated attachment to outcomes. We tie our sense of accomplishment, our self-worth, and our emotional state to a result that is, in the grand scheme of things, only partially within our influence. This is where Habit 10 comes in, a powerful Stoic practice that can fundamentally rewire your relationship with success and failure. It's the habit of focusing with all your might on the process, the actions, the effort, the virtue you bring to a task, while consciously cultivating indifference to the final outcome. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, who had a remarkable talent for cutting through self-deception, gave us the perfect mantra for this. He instructed his students in the arena of life, don't be concerned with the applause, but with your own striving. Let's unpack the profound wisdom in that simple sentence. The applause, the victory, the closed deal, the promotion, these are external events. They depend on 1,000 variables you cannot control. The mood of a decision maker, the timing of the market, a competitor's unexpected move, or just plain luck. To stake your happiness and self-esteem on such fickle foundations is to build your house on a fault line. Your own striving, however, is your sovereign territory. It encompasses the quality of your preparation, the integrity of your methods, the courage you show in the face of difficulty, and the discipline you maintain throughout the journey. This is what Epictetus urges you to be concerned with, because this is the only part of the entire endeavor that truly belongs to you and reflects your character. When you make this mental shift, you are not giving up on ambition or ceasing to care about doing good work. Quite the opposite, you are freeing yourself to pursue excellence for its own sake, unburdened by the paralyzing fear of failure or the addictive hunger for praise. Your motivation becomes internal and virtuous rather than external and fragile. This principle finds a perfect home in the world of sports. Consider an Olympic athlete. They can control their training regimen, their diet, their sleep, and their mental focus. They can step onto the track and run the race of their life, setting a personal best time. But they cannot control who else shows up that day. Another athlete might simply be better, or an unexpected injury might occur. If that runner's entire sense of self is tied to winning a gold medal, then anything less is a catastrophic personal failure, regardless of the heroic effort expended. But if their focus is on the process, on running their absolute best race with courage and determination, then they can cross the finish line in any position and still hold their head high, knowing they fully honored their potential in that moment. The quality of their effort was a success, even if the outcome was not the one they hoped for. The same dynamic applies to creative work. A writer can pour their soul into a novel, crafting beautiful sentences and a compelling story. They can control their writing discipline, their editing rigor, and their submission to publishers, but they cannot control the subjective tastes of editors, the trends of the literary market, or whether the book becomes a bestseller. If their happiness depends on seeing their book on a bestseller list, they are setting themselves up for potential misery. If, however, they find their satisfaction in the daily process of writing well, in the integrity of their creative expression, then the publication and sales become a secondary concern. The work itself was the reward. Even in the deeply personal realm of parenting, this habit is invaluable. You can control the love, the guidance, the values, and the safe environment you provide for your child. You can dedicate yourself to the process of being a present, patient, and supportive parent, but you cannot control the ultimate outcome of your child's life, their career choices, their relationships, or their happiness. Trying to control those outcomes leads to anxiety, conflict, and a sense of personal failure when your child's path diverges from your hopes. By focusing on the process of being a virtuous parent each day, you fulfill your duty with excellence, and you grant both yourself and your child the freedom to navigate life without the weight of your expectations. The emotional liberation this brings is immense. You are no longer a puppet whose strings are pulled by external results. Your sense of worth becomes unshakable because it is based on something permanent and internal, your character and your committed action. So let's bring this home with a personal exercise. Take a moment to look back on your own life and recall a specific time when you genuinely did your best at something. You put in the hard work, you acted with integrity, you gave it your full and honest effort, and yet the outcome was a failure. Perhaps it was a project that was rejected, a relationship you couldn't save despite your best intentions, or a business venture that didn't succeed. Now I want you to try a powerful act of cognitive reframing. Instead of viewing that event through the old lens of disappointment, see it through the new Stoic lens of character. That situation was not a failure of you as a person. It was a success of your character. It was a moment where you demonstrated commitment, resilience, and the strength to do what was right, even when the world didn't reward you for it. That effort was not wasted. It was a deposit into the bank of your integrity. It made you stronger, more experienced, and more resilient for the next challenge. By recategorizing your past in this way, you begin to untangle your self-worth from the unpredictable winds of fortune and anchor it firmly in the bedrock of your own virtuous striving. Your mind is a garden. What you allow in determines what grows. This isn't just a poetic metaphor, it is a practical, neurological reality. Every headline you read, every news alert that pings on your phone, every tense conversation you overhear, and every endless social media scroll is a seed being planted in the fertile soil of your consciousness. These seeds of information don't just vanish, they take root, they sprout, and they begin to shape the entire landscape of your thoughts, your judgments, and ultimately, your emotional state. The Stoics understood this principle long before the invention of the 24-hour news cycle or the algorithmic feed. They recognized that our tranquility is disrupted not by events themselves, but by the opinions and judgments we form about those events. And where do most of those opinions come from? They are imported, often uncritically, from the world outside. We are constantly absorbing the fears, outrage, and desires of the collective, and then we wonder why we feel so anxious, so irritable, and so emotionally drained. The Roman philosopher Seneca offered direct and timeless counsel on this very point. He warned about the corrupting influence of the crowd, advising his friend Lucilius to avoid frequenting large gatherings and to assiduously shield himself from the splash and spray of other people's faulty beliefs. He wrote, "So you must not think that our greed is stimulated only by those who deal in real estate or in slaves. You can be corrupted by mere association with the crowd." In our modern context, the crowd is no longer just the physical marketplace. It is the digital agora of Twitter, the outrage engine of cable news, and the curated highlight reels of Instagram that foster envy. Seneca's insight is that this constant exposure doesn't just inform us, it actively reshapes our values, inflaming our greed, our anger, and our fears until our internal state mirrors the chaotic externals we consume. The habit of mindful consumption is therefore a form of psychological self-defense. It is the deliberate practice of becoming the gatekeeper of your own mind, installing a filter between the relentless torrent of external data and your precious inner peace. This is not about sticking your head in the sand and ignoring the world. It is about shifting from a passive consumer of information to an active curator of wisdom. You are making a conscious choice about what kind of mental and emotional diet you are on, recognizing that a diet of junk food, be it nutritional or informational, will inevitably lead to poor health. So, what does this look like in practice? One of the most powerful experiments you can conduct is a voluntary media fast. Choose a single day, perhaps this coming Saturday, and make a pact with yourself to completely disconnect from all news websites, social media apps, and even talk radio. For 24 hours, you go on an information cleanse. You will likely feel an initial pull, a phantom limb sensation of needing to check your phone. But observe what happens in the silence that follows. Without the constant drip feed of global crises and political anger, your own localized, manageable life comes back into focus. The problems you can actually solve, the people you can actually help, the beauty in your immediate environment, these things regain their proper proportion. The low-grade background hum of anxiety that you had grown accustomed to begins to fade, and you realize how much of it was fueled not by your own life, but by a curated stream of distant disasters. Another practical application is the conscious curation of your digital environment. This goes beyond simply unfollowing a few annoying accounts. It is a strategic audit of what each source of information is doing to your emotional ecosystem. Does scrolling through a particular news site leave you feeling hopeless and cynical for the next hour? That source is a weed in your garden, and it needs to be pulled. Does following a certain influencer's lavish lifestyle consistently trigger feelings of inadequacy and envy? That is a toxic seed, and it must be removed. Replace them with sources that plant seeds of wisdom, growth, and tranquility. Subscribe to a philosophy blog, follow accounts that share inspiring historical stories, or listen to podcasts that focus on practical self-improvement. You are not just removing the negative, you are actively cultivating the positive. This principle extends beyond screens to the conversations you choose to engage in. The after-work gripe session, the family dinner dominated by political arguments, the gossip at the water cooler, these are all forms of consumption. You are consuming the emotional energy and judgments of others. The Stoic practice here is to recognize when a conversation is no longer an exchange of ideas but a contagion of negativity, and to have the discipline to either steer it toward more constructive ground or to gracefully extricate yourself. Protecting your mind is not rude, it is a fundamental responsibility to your own well-being. To truly understand the impact of your current information diet, I invite you to become a scientist of your own mind for just one day. Tomorrow, from the moment you wake up until you go to sleep, carry a small notepad or use a notes app to conduct a media audit. Jot down every single source of information you consume, the morning news show, the specific social media apps you check, and for how long, the podcasts on your commute, the conversations you participate in. Next to each entry, make a quick note of the primary emotion it evoked: anxiety, anger, inspiration, curiosity, or envy. At the end of the day, review your log. The patterns will be illuminating. You will see, in black and white, exactly what you are feeding your mind. Based on this audit, your task is to identify one single source that consistently correlates with a negative emotional state, and to make the conscious decision to eliminate it for the next week. It might be deleting a news app from your phone, muting a contentious Facebook group, or choosing to skip a particular coffee break conversation. This one small act of selective pruning will create more space for clarity and calm to grow in your mental garden. When was the last time you felt truly grateful for the ability to see or walk? Not in a general, abstract sense, but with a specific, piercing awareness of the miracle of that single function. For most of us, these foundational elements of our existence are invisible to us. We only notice our vision when a speck of dust irritates our eye, or our ability to walk when we twist an ankle. We breeze through our days surrounded by a breathtaking tapestry of ordinary marvels: the clean water that flows from our tap, the roof that shelters us from the storm, the simple fact that we can draw a breath without pain, and yet we pass by them without a second thought, our attention captured instead by what we lack, by what is new, shiny, or just out of reach. This habitual overlooking of the ordinary is a profound source of our discontent. The Stoic antidote to this is the deliberate, daily cultivation of gratitude for the commonplace. a practice that is deeply intertwined with the concept of Memento Mori we explored earlier. It is the recognition that everything we have, even the most basic faculties of our body, is on loan to us. They are temporary gifts, and the awareness of their potential absence is precisely what ignites the fierce, joyful appreciation for their presence right now. This habit is not about plastering a superficial positivity over life's difficulties. It is a radical act of attention that recalibrates your entire perception of wealth. It systematically dismantles the desire for superfluous things by revealing the incredible abundance that is already and always here. When you are actively, viscerally grateful for the warmth of a sweater, the taste of an apple, or the sound of a loved one's voice, the frantic chase for the next promotion, the newer car, or the larger house begins to lose its compulsive power. You realize you are already rich beyond measure. Marcus Aurelius, a man who commanded the entire Roman Empire, constantly reminded himself to find his wealth in these simple, unshakable treasures. In his meditations, he provides a stunning list of the things he is grateful for, and it is remarkably devoid of palaces or power. He writes, "I have been shown that it is possible to live a life of command and yet not be a pompous ass. I have been shown kindness from my brother. I have been given a character that cannot be provoked to anger. I have been blessed with a good grandfather, good parents, a good sister, good teachers, good family, good friends, and good associates." He goes on to thank the gods even for his ability to recover from an illness and for not getting embroiled in rhetoric or poetry. His gratitude is focused on his character, his relationships, and his health, the very things that constitute a truly good life, all of which are available to every single person, regardless of their station. This is the ultimate democratization of wealth. The emperor and the commoner can both be equally, profoundly grateful for a good friend or a moment of clear thinking. This practice shifts your metric for a successful life from external acquisitions to internal states and fundamental human experiences. To weave this transformative habit into the fabric of your day, consider establishing a simple, almost effortless ritual. One of the most powerful times to practice is just before you eat a meal. This moment of pause, when sustenance is right in front of you, is a perfect trigger for gratitude. Before you take your first bite, allow yourself to mentally thank 3 ordinary things. This isn't about creating a lengthy, formal prayer. It is about a quick, sincere acknowledgement. Your first thanks might be for the food itself, the farmers who grew it, the earth that nourished it, the complex journey it took to reach your plate. Your second could be for the ability to taste it, to savor the flavors, a faculty you possess without any effort of your own. And your third could be for the simple safety and comfort of the chair you are sitting in, the room you are in, the peace that allows you to eat without fear. This entire process takes less than 30 seconds, but its cumulative effect over weeks and months is staggering. It trains your brain to scan for goodness, to become a detective of the delightful and the dependable in your immediate environment. You begin to notice the softness of your socks, the reliability of your heartbeat, the way the light falls across the floor in the afternoon. Your world, which might have seemed dull or frustrating, begins to sparkle with a quiet, persistent magic. The things you once took for granted are revealed as the miracles they truly are. To move this from a theoretical idea into a lived, felt experience, I want to give you a very specific and immediate task. Sometime in the next 24 hours, I invite you to take a 5-minute walk. It can be around your neighborhood, in a local park, or even just around your office building. But on this walk, your only job is to be a collector of ordinary gratitude. Do not bring your phone to scroll through. Bring a small notepad or use the Notes app on your phone for one purpose only: to jot down 5 simple things you observe that you are grateful for. They must be simple and present in that moment. You might note the sturdy feeling of the ground beneath your feet. You might see a resilient weed pushing through a crack in the pavement and feel gratitude for its tenacity, a reminder of the life force that exists everywhere. You might feel the sun on your skin or the cool breeze against your face and appreciate the complex planetary systems that make such a sensation possible. You might hear the laughter of children playing and feel a surge of thankfulness for the human capacity for joy. Or you might simply notice a clean, accessible sidewalk and feel gratitude for the invisible labor of the people in your community who maintain it. This is not a trivial exercise. It is a powerful act of neuroplasticity, actively carving new pathways in your brain that orient you toward abundance and appreciation. It is the practice of falling in love with the world, not for its grand spectacles, but for its quiet, steadfast, and endlessly generous ordinary moments. You are going to die. Let's use that truth to live better. This stark, unavoidable fact is the cornerstone of one of the most transformative habits you can cultivate. At first glance, it might seem morbid or depressing to dwell on your own mortality, but the Stoic practice of Memento Mori, which translates to remember you must die, is anything but. It is not a practice of despair, it is the ultimate tool for perspective, a mental scalpel that cuts through the trivial worries, superficial desires, and petty anxieties that so often consume our days. When you hold the finitude of your life firmly in mind, it acts as a powerful filter, instantly clarifying what is truly important and what is merely noise. The frantic chase for status, the resentment over a minor slight, the hours wasted in indecision or fear, all of it begins to look different when viewed through the lens of your limited and precious time. This habit forces you to confront the most fundamental question: if my time is short and uncertain, how then shall I live? The answer for the Stoics was to live with urgency and virtue, to prioritize the development of your character above all else, because your character is the only thing you can truly take with you. The Roman philosopher Seneca, in his letters, drives this point home with breathtaking clarity. He writes, "He who has learned to die has unlearned how to be a slave." Sit with that for a moment. To learn to die is to free yourself from slavery to all the things that don't matter. The opinions of others, the pursuit of wealth for its own sake, the fear of failure. When you are no longer a slave to these externals, you become the sovereign of your own life, empowered to spend your moments on what holds real meaning: love, integrity, growth, and contribution. This is the profound liberation that Memento Mori offers. It isn't about becoming preoccupied with the end, but about becoming intensely focused and present for every step of the journey, ensuring that your life is a full, rich expression of your highest values right up to the final breath. To integrate this powerful awareness into your daily life, you don't need to dwell in a state of gloom. The key is to find simple, consistent triggers that bring the reality of impermanence to the forefront of your consciousness in a way that inspires you rather than paralyzes you. Throughout history, many Stoic practitioners kept a physical memento mori on their desks or in their homes. The most classic symbol is a skull, a literal reminder of the fate that awaits us all. In our modern context, this could feel a bit intense for your office, but the principle remains sound. It could be a small, smooth stone you keep in your pocket that you feel throughout the day, a reminder of the earth to which we will all return. It could be a specific piece of art or a screensaver on your phone with a simple, elegant phrase like "remember death" or "this too shall pass." The object itself is irrelevant. Its function is to be a tangible anchor for the practice. A more accessible and deeply effective method is to bookend your day with a moment of reflection. Each morning, as you sip your coffee or look out the window, take just 60 seconds to consciously remember, "I am mortal. This day is a gift, not a guarantee." This isn't meant to create anxiety, but to instill a sense of purpose and gratitude. It sharpens your focus, compelling you to ask, given that this day could be my last, how will I make it count? How will I treat the people I encounter? What work will I do that feels meaningful? This simple morning ritual infuses your ordinary routine with extraordinary significance. The practice transforms how you interact with the people you love. That minor irritation you feel toward a family member, how does it look when held against the backdrop of the limited number of days you have left with them? The argument you were about to start suddenly seems trivial. The urge to be right is replaced by the deeper desire to connect. Memento Mori is the ultimate antidote to taking your relationships for granted. It compels you to say the kind word now, to offer the forgiveness you've been withholding, to express your love openly and frequently, because the opportunity to do so is fleeting and fragile. It turns ordinary moments into sacred ones because you are fully aware that they are numbered. Now, to make this practice personal and immediate, I want to invite you into a powerful thought experiment. Find a quiet moment, take out a pen and paper, or open a new document on your device. At the top of the page, write this sentence: "If I knew for certain that I had 1 year left to live, I would." Now complete that sentence. Do not rush. Be brutally honest with yourself. This is not about writing a bucket list of exotic travel destinations, though those might be part of it. Go deeper. How would you spend your time? Who would you make sure to see and reconcile with? What projects or passions, long neglected, would you finally give your energy to? What petty grievances and fears would you finally release? What truths would you have the courage to speak? This exercise is a diagnostic tool for your soul. It reveals the gap between the life you are currently living and the life you know, in your heart, you are meant to be living. The things that show up on that list are your true priorities, the things that Memento Mori is designed to bring into sharp, unignorable focus. The goal is not to wait for a terminal diagnosis to start living this way, but to use the awareness of your mortality as the very fuel that propels you to live with that level of intention, clarity, and virtue starting today. The next time someone is rude to you, try disarming them with grace. This might sound like a recipe for getting walked all over, a kind of weak surrender in the face of hostility. But from a Stoic perspective, responding to provocation with deliberate kindness is one of the most powerful and assertive acts of strength you can perform. It is the ultimate demonstration that your emotional state is yours to command, not something that can be hijacked by another person's behavior. When you meet anger with calm and insult with understanding, you are not losing the encounter. You are winning a far more important battle, the battle for your own inner peace and integrity. This habit is a direct application of the Stoic virtue of justice. The Stoics defined justice not merely as a legal concept, but as the social virtue that governs our interactions with others. It involves recognizing the inherent worth and shared rationality of every human being, even when their actions seem to suggest otherwise. When someone acts rudely, critically, or with malice, the Stoic sees not a monster to be defeated, but a person who is deeply mistaken about what is truly good for them. They are operating from a place of ignorance, believing that lashing out, gaining an advantage, or putting someone else down will bring them happiness or security. In reality, their actions are a symptom of their own inner turmoil, their own flawed judgment about the nature of the good life. Your hostile coworker isn't inherently evil. They are likely stressed, insecure, or unhappy, and they are mistakenly looking for relief by projecting that discomfort onto you. The driver who cuts you off isn't targeting you personally. They are probably anxious, rushed, and oblivious, acting from a mistaken belief that arriving 2 minutes earlier is worth jeopardizing everyone's safety. Marcus Aurelius offered a beautifully compassionate lens through which to view such people. He advised himself, when people injure you, ask yourself what good or harm they thought would come of it. If you understand that, you'll feel sympathy rather than outrage or anger, for you may still aspire to the same good yourself, or to something of the same kind, in which case you'll have to excuse the misguided doer. He takes it a step further, noting that it is actually a form of kindness to help someone see their error, not with retaliation, but with a calm and reasoned response that shows them a better way. Your gentle reaction in the face of their hostility becomes a silent lesson in what true strength looks like. Let's translate this profound principle into a concrete script you can use. Imagine you're driving and another driver makes a dangerous maneuver, nearly causing an accident, and then rolls down their window to shout an obscenity at you. Your body floods with adrenaline, your jaw clenches, the impulse to shout back, to gesture, to chase them down and teach them a lesson is overwhelming. This is the critical moment for the mindful pause. You take a breath. You remember the dichotomy of control. You cannot control their actions or their words, but you have absolute sovereignty over your response. Instead of escalating, you make a choice that embodies Stoic justice. You look at the driver and you simply give a small, slow nod. Not a nod of agreement, but a nod of acknowledgement. You might even, if it feels safe and genuine, offer a small, non-sarcastic wave. The message this sends is not "I am weak." The message is, "I see your anger, but I will not reflect it back to you. I am not going to let your bad day ruin mine." You disarm the entire situation by refusing to play the game. The same approach works powerfully in digital spaces. You receive a hostile email or a nasty comment on a post. The impulsive, emotionally satisfying reaction is to craft a brilliantly scathing reply that puts the person in their place. But the Stoic, after that necessary pause, chooses a different path. A potential response script could be, "Thank you for sharing your perspective. I can see that you're very passionate about this issue, and I appreciate you taking the time to write. I may see things differently, but I value constructive dialogue." This kind of response does several things at once. It validates their right to an opinion without endorsing the hostility. It de-escalates the emotional temperature instantly. It maintains your dignity and positions you as the calm, rational party. And most importantly, it protects your mind from being poisoned by their negativity. You have applied justice by treating them with a respect they did not offer you, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve to act in accordance with your own virtuous character. To begin weaving this challenging but deeply rewarding habit into your life, take a few moments of quiet reflection now. Cast your mind back to a recent conflict, large or small, where you reacted with anger or defensiveness. It could be a spat with a partner, a tense exchange with a customer service representative, or an online argument. Now, mentally rewind the tape, replay the scene, but this time insert the Stoic pause. Imagine yourself taking that breath, accessing that feeling of compassionate understanding for the other person's ignorance or pain. Now, mentally rehearse a new response, one rooted in the virtue of justice and kindness. What words would you use? What tone would you adopt? How would it feel to walk away from that interaction knowing you acted with integrity, regardless of the other person's behavior? This mental rehearsal is not just daydreaming, it is building the neural pathway so that the next time provocation arises, this kinder, stronger response is a little more accessible, a little more automatic. You are not just avoiding conflict, you are actively building a more peaceful world, one graceful response at a time. Your happiness is determined by what you want and what you don't want. Let's simplify that list. This might be one of the most liberating and challenging invitations you will ever receive. Every day, we are pulled in countless directions by an endless parade of wants and don't wants. We want that promotion, that new gadget, that perfect relationship. We want to be admired, to be successful, to be comfortable. At the same time, we have an equally long list of things we are desperate to avoid. We don't want to feel awkward, we don't want to fail, we don't want to be criticized, and we certainly don't want to experience any form of pain or discomfort. The Stoics identified this dual list as the very engine of our emotional turmoil. They realized that our peace of mind is not shattered by events themselves, but by our intense, often irrational attachments to these desires and aversions. When you crave a specific outcome like a flood of positive comments on a social media post, you hand over a piece of your happiness to the whims of an algorithm and the moods of strangers. When you are deeply averse to a difficult but necessary conversation, you grant that future event the power to fill your present moments with dread and anxiety. Your emotional state becomes a hostage to externals, rising and falling with every fulfilled or thwarted desire, with every encountered or avoided discomfort. The Stoic goal, then, is not to become a passive blob with no preferences, but to perform a radical audit of your list. It is to systematically align your desires only with what is virtuous and reasonable. The desire to act with integrity, to be kind, to pursue wisdom, and your aversions only with what is truly vicious, the aversion to acting dishonestly, cruelly, or unjustly. Everything else, all the external outcomes and sensations, are to be treated with a calm and healthy indifference. You can prefer them, but you must not require them for your peace. This entire framework rests on the foundational teaching of Epictetus, who began his manual for life, the Enchiridion, with this stark and clarifying distinction. He wrote, "Some things are up to us and some are not up to us. Our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our aversions. In a word, whatever is our own doing are up to us. Our bodies, our property, our reputations, our public offices. In a word, whatever is not our own doing are not up to us." The profound implication is that if you desire only what is entirely within your power, your own choices, your own judgments, your own character, you can never be disappointed. If you are only averse to what is within your power to avoid, your own vicious actions, you will rarely be disturbed. But the moment you attach your desire to a reputation you cannot control, or your aversion to a physical discomfort that is part of the human experience, you have entered a contract with unhappiness. Let's make this intensely practical with an example that will resonate with nearly everyone. Consider the craving for social media validation. You spend time crafting what you think is a witty post or a beautiful photo, and you share it with the world. Almost immediately, the desire for likes and positive comments arises. This desire feels natural, but from a Stoic perspective, it is a trap. You have attached your sense of worth and satisfaction to an external outcome, the approval of others, which is categorically not up to you. You cannot force people to like your post. You can only control the act of creating and sharing it, and the intention behind it. When you tie your happiness to the result, you set yourself up for a roller coaster. A post that gets a lot of engagement gives you a temporary high, while one that is ignored can lead to a surprising and disproportionate sense of rejection and self-doubt. The Stoic practice is to consciously limit that desire. Before you post, you set your intention. You decide that the virtuous act was in the creativity, the self-expression, or the sharing of something you found meaningful. The posting itself is the end of the process that was within your control. The likes and comments that follow are merely external phenomena like the weather. You can observe them with interest, but you do not allow them to determine your inner climate. You have simplified your list you desired to create and share, and that desire has already been fulfilled by your own action. Now let's look at the other side of the coin, aversion. So many of us live in a state of low-grade dread about difficult conversations. You need to give critical feedback to an employee, or address a recurring issue with your partner, or ask for a raise. The aversion to the potential conflict, the awkwardness, or the rejection can be so powerful that it leads to procrastination, which only amplifies the anxiety and allows the problem to fester. This aversion is rooted in a judgment that discomfort is bad and must be avoided at all costs. But the Stoic asks, is temporary discomfort truly something to be averse to, or is it simply a sensation, a natural part of growth and honest communication? By placing this conversation on your list of things to be averse to, you have given it monstrous power. The Stoic practice is to limit this aversion. You reframe the conversation not as a threat to your comfort, but as an opportunity to practice the virtues of courage, honesty, and justice. Your duty is to communicate clearly and fairly for the benefit of all involved. The other person's reaction, whether they become defensive, angry, or grateful, is not up to you. Your only job is to perform your part with integrity. The discomfort you feel is simply the friction of growth, and by moving through it, you build resilience and prove to yourself that you can handle challenging situations without coming undone. The emotional freedom that comes from this practice is immense. You are no longer jerked around by 1,000 invisible strings of want and don't want. You have pared down your list to the essentials, the desire to be a good person and the aversion to being a bad one. Everything else is met with a calm and steady preference, but not a desperate need. To start this process of simplification in your own life, take a moment for a concrete exercise. Find a quiet space and bring to mind the various currents of desire and aversion that flowed through you just today. Now take out a piece of paper or open a new note on your phone. Your task is to identify 3 non-essential desires that you can consciously practice releasing this week. Be specific. Your first might be the desire for your commute to be completely free of traffic. This is not up to you, and clinging to it only brings frustration. Instead, you can practice the desire to use your commute time well, whether that means listening to an inspiring podcast or simply observing your surroundings with curiosity. Your second could be the desire for a particular colleague to agree with all of your ideas. This, too, is not up to you. You can replace it with the desire to express your ideas clearly and to listen openly to theirs. Your third might be the desire for a perfectly clean and organized home at all times. This is an impossible standard that creates constant low-grade stress. You can practice desiring instead to maintain a reasonably tidy space while accepting the beautiful, lived-in mess that comes with a full and active life. By writing these down and consciously working to release them, you are not giving up on ambition or comfort. You are making a strategic withdrawal of your emotional investment from arenas where you have no control and reinvesting it in the one arena where you are truly sovereign, your own character and your chosen responses. This is how you build a happiness that is durable, self-contained, and immune to the shifting winds of fortune. The obstacle is the way. You may have heard that phrase before, popularized in modern times, but its heart beats with ancient Stoic wisdom. This isn't just a catchy motto to print on a motivational poster. It is a radical and proactive stance toward life itself, a declaration that the very things that block your path are not detours on your journey, but are in fact the path itself. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius, who faced endless political intrigue, betrayals, and the pressures of constant warfare, constantly returned to this mental refrain in his private writings. He reminded himself the impediment to action advances action, What stands in the way becomes the way. Let's unpack the profound mechanics of that statement. An obstacle, by its very nature, forces a decision. You can try to go around it, which often requires you to develop new skills and discover routes you never knew existed. You can attempt to go over it, which demands you build your strength and resilience to new heights. Or, in some cases, you can break through it, which teaches you about force, strategy, and your own capacity for focused effort. In every single scenario, the obstacle is not a passive barrier. It is an active, if demanding, teacher. It compels growth that would have remained dormant had your path been perfectly smooth. This habit of finding the opportunity in the obstacle is the ultimate act of alchemy for the mind. It is the process of taking the lead of a setback and transmuting it into the gold of wisdom, strength, or a new direction. It's a shift from asking, "Why is this happening to me?" to the far more empowering question, "What is this happening for me? What is this preparing me for?" This reframing transforms you from a victim of circumstance into an active participant in your own development. Every piece of criticism, for instance, is not an attack to be deflected, but a data point to be examined. Even if 95% of it is unfair or poorly delivered, there is almost always a hidden kernel of truth, a blind spot it is illuminating. That harsh feedback about your communication style might be the very thing that pushes you to become a more effective and empathetic leader, if you have the courage to sift through the emotion for the useful signal. A project that fails spectacularly is not just a waste of time. It is a priceless, real-world education in what does not work, saving you from making the same costly mistake on a much larger scale in the future. The obstacle, in this case, became the way to a smarter, more informed strategy. History is filled with stunning examples of this principle in action. Consider Thomas Edison and his quest to invent a practical electric light bulb. The story goes that after thousands of failed attempts, a young reporter asked him, "Mr. Edison, how do you feel about failing so many times?" Edison's legendary reply was, "Young man, I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." This is the essence of the Stoic mindset in practice. He did not see each extinguished filament, each shattered glass bulb as a setback. He saw each one as a necessary experiment that eliminated a dead end and brought him one step closer to the solution. The obstacle, the inability to find a durable filament, was the very process that advanced the action. It forced relentless innovation, deepens his understanding of material science, and ultimately paved the way to a discovery that would change the world. In a more modern context, think of a business that fails. It's easy to see this as a final, devastating verdict. But for the entrepreneur who practices this Stoic habit, the bankruptcy is not the end of the story. It is a brutal but comprehensive masterclass in business. They learn firsthand about cash flow management, market fit, team dynamics, and their own personal limits. The obstacle of failure becomes the way to a deeper, more practical wisdom that no business school could ever fully teach. They emerge not as a failed businessperson, but as a seasoned veteran who is now infinitely better prepared for their next venture, armed with hard-won knowledge that can only be earned through experience. The closed door of the first business forces them to find a new, and often better, door to walk through. To begin weaving this transformative habit into the fabric of your own thinking, I want to invite you into a practical exercise right now. Bring to the forefront of your mind one current problem you are facing. It could be a professional challenge, a strained relationship, a financial pressure, or a personal goal that feels out of reach. Now take out a pen and paper or open a new note on your device. At the top, write down a brief description of this obstacle. Below it, I want you to brainstorm and write down 3 specific ways this difficulty could actually be making you stronger, wiser, or redirecting you toward a better path. Push yourself to think creatively. For example, if your obstacle is a difficult and demanding boss, your 3 points might be: 1. This is training my patience and emotional regulation under pressure, skills that are valuable in every area of life. 2. It is forcing me to improve my communication and assertiveness as I learn to set boundaries and articulate my ideas more clearly. 3. It is clarifying what kind of leader I do not want to be, which is a crucial lesson for my own future growth. If your obstacle is a financial setback, your 3 points could be: 1. It is teaching me resourcefulness and how to distinguish between my needs and my wants. 2. It is motivating me to finally learn about budgeting and investing, creating a foundation of financial literacy that will serve me for a lifetime. 3. It is revealing the true depth of my relationships, showing me who is willing to support me not just in good times, but in challenging ones as well. This simple act of brainstorming is not about pretending the problem is pleasant. It is a deliberate cognitive intervention. You are forcing your brain to search for the hidden curriculum within the hardship. You are shifting from a passive stance of endurance to an active stance of mining the situation for its value. By doing this, you take ownership of the narrative. The obstacle stops being something that is happening to you and starts becoming an experience you are moving through for your ultimate benefit. This is how you start to see, in your own daily life, that the obstacle is not in the way, it is the way. Imagine your mind as a fortified city. What are its walls made of? Are they built from the flimsy materials of other people's opinions, the shifting sands of good fortune, or the brittle clay of your latest success? Or are they constructed from something far more durable and unassailable, from the bedrock of your deepest principles and your most cherished values? This powerful metaphor lies at the heart of our 17th habit, the practice of cultivating your inner citadel. This isn't about building a wall to hide from the world, but about creating an impregnable core of self that remains calm, clear, and unshaken, no matter what storms rage outside the gates. Think of all the habits we've explored so far as the individual training exercises and construction techniques that make this final, magnificent structure possible. The mindful pause, the evening review, the practice of Amor, Fati, each one adds another layer of stone, another reinforced tower to this inner fortress. The ultimate goal of Stoicism is this very self-sufficiency, a state where your happiness and peace are generated from within, making you immune to the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Marcus Aurelius, who needed this mental fortress more than most, frequently wrote about this concept of retreat. He advised himself, people look for retreats for themselves, in the country, by the coast, or in the hills. There is nowhere that a person can find a more peaceful and trouble-free retreat than in his own mind, so constantly give yourself this retreat and renew yourself. He is pointing to the ultimate sanctuary, a place you can carry with you everywhere. When a crisis hits at work, when you receive bad news, or when you find yourself in a chaotic environment, you don't need to physically run away. You have the capacity to take one step back mentally and retreat into this inner citadel. Inside its walls, the noise fades, the judgments of others lose their sting. The fear of failure diminishes. You are home in the quiet company of your own rational mind and your unwavering values. So, how do you actually build this fortress if it doesn't yet feel solid? It begins with a conscious and deliberate identification of your foundational principles. These are the non-negotiable truths that will form the constitution of your inner city. The Stoics had theirs: wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. These were their cardinal virtues, the unshakable standards against which they measured every thought and action. You can adopt these timeless principles, or you can define your own set of core values that resonate with your life's purpose. The key is that they must be internal and virtuous qualities, not external outcomes. A value like integrity is a sturdy wall. A desire for being widely respected is a gate that swings open for anyone who offers praise, leaving you vulnerable. One of the most practical ways to reinforce these walls is through the memorization and daily contemplation of key Stoic maxims. These are like the rallying cries of your inner garrison, phrases you can call upon in moments of doubt or distress. When you feel tempted to complain about a situation, you can recall Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This instantly pulls you back from the external event and into the safety of your citadel, where your power of choice resides. When you are fearing a future outcome, you can hear the voice of Seneca. We suffer more often in imagination than in reality. This maxim acts like a watchtower guard, helping you see the true landscape of your fears and distinguishing between real threats and phantom projections. By internalizing these philosophical statements, you arm yourself with a ready-made rational response to the irrational impressions that constantly assault your peace. Let's make this tangible with a real-world scenario. Imagine you are in a high-stakes negotiation. The other party is using aggressive tactics, making personal jabs, and trying to fluster you. If your inner citadel is weak, you might react from a place of ego and emotion. You might become defensive, lash out in anger, or cave in from anxiety, compromising your position. But if you have been cultivating this fortress, you have a different option. The moment you feel the heat rising, you consciously retreat inward. You touch the walls of your core values. Perhaps they are courage, composure, and fairness. You remember your maxim, the best revenge is not to be like your enemy. From this centered place, you can respond. You don't react to the personal jabs. You let them glance off the stone of your dignity. You stay focused on the facts of the negotiation, acting with composure because that is who you are, regardless of who they are being. Your inner stability becomes your greatest strategic advantage, and you walk away from the table with your peace intact and your objectives met, regardless of the final deal. This is the power of the inner citadel in action. It turns chaotic external situations into opportunities to demonstrate the strength of your character. Now, to make this deeply personal and to begin the construction process today, I want to guide you through a foundational exercise. Find a quiet moment, take out a journal or a blank document, and give yourself the space to answer this question with absolute honesty. What are the 3 core, unshakable values that form the foundation of my inner citadel? Don't rush this. This is one of the most important declarations you can make for your own emotional sovereignty. Look beyond societal expectations or what others have told you to value. Dig deep into your own experience. When have you felt most proud of yourself? When have you felt most at peace? What principles, if you betrayed them, would make you feel that you had lost yourself? Your first value might be integrity. This is the wall of honesty and wholeness, the commitment to acting in alignment with your word, even when no one is watching. Your second could be compassion. This is the gate that allows you to connect with others, to understand their struggles without letting their turmoil become your own. Your third might be resilience. This is the sturdy keep at the center of your citadel, the unwavering belief in your ability to endure and adapt, no matter what life throws at you. Write these 3 values down. Keep them somewhere you will see them regularly. These are not just words, they are the architectural plans for your inner fortress. Whenever you face a difficult decision or a disturbing event, you can ask yourself, how do I respond in a way that honors my citadel? What would a person of integrity, compassion, and resilience do here? By consistently acting from this center, you are not just thinking about your citadel, you are laying stone upon stone, building a sanctuary of peace that will shelter you for a lifetime. Are you living for yourself alone, or are you a part of a larger whole? This question lies at the heart of a habit that can fundamentally reorient your entire approach to daily life, shifting your focus from a narrow, self-centered perspective to a broader, more interconnected one. In our modern world, it's incredibly easy to fall into the trap of seeing our lives as a solo project, where the primary goals are personal success, individual comfort, and the accumulation of private achievements. We curate our social media feeds to showcase our personal highlights. We set career goals focused on our own advancement, and we often measure our days by what we accomplished for ourselves. While there's nothing inherently wrong with self-improvement, the Stoics recognize that this exclusive focus on the self is a recipe for a specific kind of emotional fragility. It makes your sense of worth and peace vulnerable to every personal setback, every unmet expectation, and every moment of self-doubt. When your world is small, contained within the borders of your own skin, every minor inconvenience can feel like a cataclysm. The practice of acting for the common welfare is the powerful antidote to this self-imposed isolation. It is the conscious, daily effort to ask not just what's in it for me, but how can this action benefit my family, my colleagues, my community, or even a stranger I may never meet. This habit is a direct expression of the Stoic principle of social duty, the understanding that we are not isolated atoms but interdependent members of a vast human ecosystem. Marcus Aurelius captured this truth with elegant simplicity when he wrote, "We were born for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids, like the rows of upper and lower teeth. To act against one another, then, is contrary to nature." Think about the profound imagery he uses. Your hands do not work for their own benefit alone. They work in concert for the good of the entire body. Your upper and lower teeth don't compete for resources. They cooperate to perform the essential function of nourishing the body. In the same way, you are designed by nature to be a social creature, wired for connection and mutual support. To live solely for yourself is to act against your own fundamental design, and that internal conflict is a deep source of unrest. When you begin to live with this expanded sense of purpose, something remarkable happens to your emotional landscape. The petty concerns that once consumed an enormous amount of your mental energy, the sting of a forgotten compliment, the anxiety over a minor social slight, the frustration of a trivial inconvenience begin to lose their power. They simply don't seem as significant when viewed against the backdrop of a larger mission to contribute to the well-being of your human community. Your personal dramas are put into perspective, and in their place, you cultivate a profound sense of connected purpose. You are no longer just you navigating a hostile world. You are a vital part of a collective human project, and your daily actions, no matter how small, become meaningful contributions to that project. This shift is incredibly liberating. It replaces the anxiety of self-preservation with the calm confidence of purposeful contribution. So, how do you translate this grand philosophical ideal into the gritty reality of a Tuesday afternoon? It doesn't require you to quit your job and join the Peace Corps, though it might inspire you to do so someday. The practice begins with micro-actions, small, intentional choices that rewire your brain to automatically look for opportunities to be useful. One of the most accessible places to start is in your immediate work environment. The next time a colleague is visibly struggling with a heavy workload or a complex problem, instead of feeling relieved it's not your problem or simply offering a sympathetic word, take a concrete step. You could say, "That looks like a lot. Is there one small piece of it I can take off your plate for an hour?" This isn't about grand gestures or expecting recognition. In fact, the Stoic value of the action is amplified when it's done without any expectation of reward or even a thank you. The act itself is its own reward, as it reinforces your identity as a cooperative member of your professional community. The same principle applies in your neighborhood. Notice the small needs that often go unseen. Perhaps an elderly neighbor has let their garden become overgrown. Instead of just noticing it, you could spend 30 minutes on a Saturday morning pulling the most obvious weeds. Or you could offer to carry a heavy grocery bag for a young parent struggling with a stroller. These are not world-changing events, but they are community-building actions. They are the practical threads that weave the fabric of a supportive and resilient social world, and in the process, they strengthen your own sense of belonging and purpose. On a broader scale, this habit might lead you to dedicate a few hours a month to a local volunteer organization, whether it's a food bank, an animal shelter, or a literacy program. The specific cause matters less than the intentional act of giving your time and energy for the benefit of strangers. This practice is a powerful reminder that your capacity for good extends far beyond your immediate circle of friends and family, connecting you to the vast, interconnected web of humanity that the Stoics called the cosmopolis, or the world city. To truly ground this habit in your life and feel its transformative effect on your own emotional balance, I want to issue you a direct and personal challenge. Sometime within the next 7 days, commit to performing one single, anonymous act of kindness for the common good. The anonymity is crucial, as it removes any temptation to do it for social validation or praise, ensuring the motivation is purely Stoic. The action is virtuous for its own sake. Your act could be as simple as paying for the coffee of the person behind you in the drive-through line. It could be leaving a genuinely encouraging note on a random car windshield. You could anonymously donate a small amount to a charity that resonates with you, or you could perform a small, unseen task that lightens the load for your family, like handling a chore that is normally someone else's responsibility without announcing that you've done it. The key is to do it secretly, to feel the private satisfaction of having contributed to the common welfare without any external fanfare. Observe the quiet sense of fulfillment that arises from this action, a feeling that is far more stable and lasting than the fleeting high of personal achievement. This is the emotional reward of living in accordance with your nature as a social being, and it is a profound source of the inner tranquility you've been seeking all along. The most important conversation you have all day is the one you have with yourself. This ongoing internal monologue, the stream of thoughts and judgments that narrates your experience, is the very software running your mind, and it directly dictates your emotional state and your actions. Most of us, however, are completely unaware of its content. We allow this inner critic or worrier to run on autopilot, repeating old scripts of self-doubt, catastrophic predictions, and harsh judgments without ever challenging their validity. The Stoics identified this as the primary battleground for tranquility. They taught that we are disturbed not by events themselves, but by the opinions we form about those events, and these opinions are forged and reinforced in the furnace of our inner dialogue. This habit is about moving from being a passive listener to this internal chatter to becoming its active, compassionate director. It is the practice of monitoring your self-talk with the same attentive ear you might lend to a close friend, and then deliberately shaping it to be constructive, rational, and kind. The philosopher Epictetus, whose teachings form the core of this practice, put it with stunning simplicity: men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Your inner dialogue is where you form those views. When you wake up to a rainy day and your internal voice groans, "This is going to be a terrible, unproductive day," you have just formed a judgment that will color your entire experience. You will likely feel sluggish, irritable, and look for evidence to confirm this prediction. But if that same internal voice, upon noticing the rain, observes, "The weather is rainy today," this is a good opportunity to focus on indoor tasks and enjoy the cozy atmosphere. You have formed a completely different judgment, one that leads to feelings of focus and contentment. The external event, the rain, is identical. The entire difference in your emotional reality is manufactured by the few sentences your inner voice chose to speak. This is the immense power you hold, the power to author your emotional experience through the words you use in the privacy of your own mind. The Stoic practice is to catch these initial impressions, these automatic, often negative judgments, and to consciously correct them before they take root and dictate your mood. Think of your mind as a garden. Your initial, automatic negative thought is like a weed seed blowing in on the wind. You can't always stop the seed from arriving, but you absolutely can choose whether to water it and let it grow, or to immediately pluck it out and replace it with a seed of a more beautiful and useful plant. Mastering your inner dialogue is that act of vigilant gardening. You are not your thoughts, you are the gardener who tends to them. Let's make this incredibly practical with a few common scenarios and the powerful reframing that Stoic wisdom offers. Imagine you're about to give a presentation and a wave of anxiety hits. The autopilot inner dialogue might sound like this: "I'm so nervous, I'm going to forget everything. Everyone is going to see how incompetent I am." This kind of self-talk is like pouring gasoline on the fire of your anxiety. It tightens your chest, clouds your thinking, and sets you up for the very failure you fear. Now apply the Stoic correction. You notice the thought, you pause, and you consciously reframe it. The new, directed inner dialogue sounds like this: "I feel some nervous energy, which is my body's way of preparing for a challenge." This is an opportunity to practice courage and clarity. My value is not determined by a perfect performance, but by my willingness to share my ideas and contribute. I am prepared, and I will focus on communicating one clear point at a time. Do you feel the seismic shift in the emotional landscape between those two internal statements? The first one is a fearful, self-abandoning narrative. The second is a courageous, self-supporting one. It acknowledges the feeling without being controlled by it, and it redirects your focus to the process and your character, which are within your control. Here's another example. You make a mistake at work, you send an email to the wrong person with sensitive information. The automatic, critical inner voice screams, "I'm such an idiot. I always mess things up, now I'm going to get fired." This dialogue plunges you into a spiral of shame and panic, making it difficult to think clearly about damage control. The Stoic reframe would be to approach yourself with rational compassion. The corrected inner dialogue might be, "I made a human error. This is disappointing, but it does not define my entire worth." The rational and virtuous response right now is to take immediate responsibility. I will apologize to the affected parties, implement a safeguard to prevent this in the future, and then release the guilt. This mistake is a teacher showing me where a new system is needed. This isn't about making excuses, it's about treating yourself with the same fairness and constructive focus you would offer a colleague who made the same error. By changing the conversation, you transform a potential crisis of self-worth into a manageable problem-solving session, protecting your emotional balance and allowing you to act with integrity and effectiveness. To begin this vital work of mastering your inner world, your task is to become a detective of your own self-talk for the next 24 hours. Carry a small notepad with you, or use the Notes app on your phone, and make a commitment to catch just one recurring pattern of negative self-talk. Don't judge it, simply observe and document it. Perhaps you notice that every time you face a new challenge, your inner voice whispers, "You're not capable of this." Or maybe whenever you have a quiet moment, it starts to list all your perceived failures. Write that specific phrase or pattern down. Seeing it in black and white externalizes it and robs it of some of its power. Once you have identified this pattern, your next step is to consciously write a new script. Beneath the negative phrase, write a Stoic reframe, a rational and compassionate counter-statement that you can practice repeating to yourself. If your pattern is "I'm not capable," your reframe could be "My capability is built through action and learning. I will focus on the first small step." If your pattern is a litany of past failures, your reframe could be "My past actions do not imprison my future. I choose to learn from them and move forward with wisdom today." This simple act of writing it down and practicing the new dialogue is how you begin to reprogram the deepest layers of your mind, replacing the voice of a harsh critic with the steady, supportive voice of a wise and compassionate inner guide. The Stoics believed that we are all limbs of the same body. This powerful and ancient image is not just a poetic sentiment. It is a profound philosophical principle known as Sympatheia, the deep, rational interconnectedness of all things. In a world that often feels fractured and divided, where headlines scream of conflict and social media algorithms profit from our disagreements, this habit offers a radical and healing perspective. It is the practice of cultivating a felt sense of connection, not just an intellectual understanding, but a visceral, emotional recognition that you are an integral part of a single, vast, living organism called humanity, and indeed the cosmos itself. When you truly internalize this, the walls of separation that your mind constructs begin to dissolve. The stranger in the grocery store line is no longer just an obstacle slowing you down. They are a fellow limb of the same body, with their own complex history, their own struggles, and their own yearning for happiness. The colleague you have a difficult history with is not an adversary to be defeated, but another expression of the same universal reason, perhaps just momentarily lost or confused. This habit systematically dismantles the toxic us versus them thinking that is the root of so much resentment, prejudice, and isolation. It replaces the loneliness of being a solitary island with the comforting solidarity of being a vital cell in a much larger, magnificent whole. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius returned to this theme again and again in his private writings, using it as an anchor for his own sense of duty and compassion. He reminded himself, "What brings no benefit to the hive brings none to the bee." Your life, your actions, and your well-being are inextricably linked to the health of the collective. To act selfishly or with malice toward another is, in the grand Stoic view, an act of self-harm, like a hand deciding to punch the face. The entire body, including the hand, suffers the injury. He also wrote, "Meditate often on the interconnectedness and mutual interdependence of all things in the universe." He is urging us to contemplate the invisible threads that bind us all. The air I exhale, you inhale. The food on my plate was grown by a farmer I will never meet, transported by a truck driver, sold by a cashier. The ideas I share were first seeded in my mind by teachers and authors long gone. We are all nodes in an endless, shimmering web of cause and effect, giving and receiving in a continuous, cosmic dance. To feel separate from this web is an illusion, and it is an illusion that causes immense suffering. When you feel disconnected, you become prone to envy, seeing others' success as a theft from your own potential. You become vulnerable to bitterness, interpreting the good fortune of others as a personal injustice. And you become susceptible to loneliness, even in a crowd, because you perceive yourself as fundamentally apart from the flow of life around you. Sympatheia is the conscious practice of re-weaving yourself back into that fabric, of feeling the threads that connect you to every other person, and in doing so, fostering a deep and genuine empathy that arises from a place of shared identity. To bring this from a beautiful abstraction into a tangible tool for daily life, consider a moment when you are feeling most irritated or angry with a stranger. Perhaps you are stuck in traffic and you feel a surge of frustration toward the faceless drivers in the cars around you. In that moment, instead of stewing in your isolation, try activating Sympatheia. Look at the driver in the car next to you. Really look. See the faint tension in their shoulders, the way they might be glancing at the clock on their dashboard. Now consciously remind yourself, this person, just like me, is trying to get somewhere. They have people they love, worries that keep them up at night, dreams they are chasing, and disappointments they are carrying. They are not a traffic obstacle. They are a living, breathing, feeling human being, a fellow limb of this vast, struggling, beautiful human body, just trying to navigate their own path through a complicated world. The anger doesn't magically vanish, but it often loses its sharp, personal edge, replaced by a more patient, weary kind of understanding. The same practice works when you feel disconnected in a large crowd. At a concert, in an airport terminal, or in a busy public square, instead of retreating into the bubble of your phone, take a moment to look around. See the incredible diversity of faces, ages, and expressions. Then consciously shift your perspective. See not a mass of separate individuals, but a single, pulsing organism. Hear the collective murmur not as noise, but as the sound of the hive. Feel your own breath as part of the shared atmosphere of the room. This simple shift can transform a feeling of anonymous alienation into a profound sense of belonging. You are not a lonely drop of water, you are part of the ocean. To truly integrate this habit and experience its power to heal your own heart and your relationships, I want to offer you a specific and potentially transformative exercise. Bring to mind a person with whom you currently have a conflict or a lingering resentment. It could be a former friend, a difficult family member, or a co-worker. The thought of them likely brings a tightness to your chest, a story of how they wronged you. Now, for just 60 seconds, I invite you to try a mental experiment in Sympatheia. Close your eyes and picture this person clearly. See their face. Then, behind that face, try to see the universal human striving that you both share. Silently, in your mind, wish them well. You can use a simple, ancient phrase like, "I wish for you to be free from suffering. I wish for you to be happy and at peace." You don't have to believe it fully. You don't have to condone their actions or forget the hurt. You are simply performing an act of cognitive and emotional alchemy, consciously choosing to see them not as your enemy, but as a fellow limb of the same body who, like you, is often confused, often afraid, and always, in their own flawed way, striving for some version of happiness. This is not about them. It is about freeing you from the corrosive poison of resentment. It is about reclaiming your own peace by recognizing that the person you see as other is, in the most fundamental Stoic sense, a part of your own self. Where is your mind right now? Is it here, fully engaged with these words, or is it drifting into a replay of a difficult conversation from yesterday? Or perhaps leaping ahead into a list of everything you need to accomplish tomorrow? This constant mental time travel is one of the most common and draining habits of the modern mind. We spend so much of our lives lost in the ghost towns of the past or the mirage cities of the future that we completely miss the only place where life is actually happening, the present moment. The Stoics saw this with remarkable clarity. They understood that anxiety is almost always a fear of a future that does not yet exist, and that depression is often a weight of a past that can no longer be changed. Their solution was to train the attention like a muscle to fully inhabit the task or experience immediately before you. This isn't a call to be irresponsible or to avoid planning. It is about recognizing that the only reality you can ever actually engage with is the single, fleeting impression in front of you right now. Everything else, the memory, the prediction, the worry, is a story you are telling yourself inside your head. The Roman philosopher Seneca, in his profound letters, lamented this human tendency to sacrifice the only real moment we ever have. He wrote, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today. You are arranging what lies in fortune's control and abandoning what lies in yours." What are you looking at? To what goal are you straining? The whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. That last phrase is a command. Live immediately. Stop postponing your life, waiting for some future condition to be met before you allow yourself to be fully present and at peace. The project deadline, the retirement savings goal, the perfect relationship, these are all landmarks on a map. But your life is the territory you are walking through right now. If you are not fully alive to the texture of this step, you are missing the entire journey. The Stoic focus is relentlessly on the present because it is the only arena where your power is absolute. You cannot change a past action, you can only learn from it. You cannot control a future outcome, you can only prepare for it. But you can, in this very moment, choose your judgment, direct your effort, and act with virtue. The impression before you, the dirty dish in your sink, the colleague speaking to you, the feeling of your breath in your lungs, this is the only thing that is real and actionable. Everything else is a phantom, and investing your emotional energy in phantoms is the surest way to lose your equilibrium. To translate this from a philosophical concept into a lived experience, begin with the most mundane activities. The next time you are washing dishes, instead of treating it as a chore to rush through while your mind races elsewhere, try to make it your entire world. Feel the warmth of the water on your skin. Notice the shimmer of the soap bubbles as they catch the light. Listen to the sound of the plate being scrubbed clean. When your mind inevitably wanders to what you need to do next, gently, without judgment, guide it back to the sensation of the water and the simple, purposeful motion of your hands. This is not about achieving a state of bliss while doing chores. It is about practicing the fundamental skill of anchoring your attention in the current reality. This same principle transforms your interactions with other people. How often are you in a conversation, nodding along, while internally you are formulating your response, judging what they are saying, or thinking about an entirely unrelated problem? To be fully present with someone is one of the most profound gifts you can give. The next time a friend or family member is speaking to you, make a conscious effort to listen with your entire being. Put away your phone, make soft eye contact. Listen not just to their words, but to the tone of their voice and the expression on their face. Suspend your own internal monologue and simply receive what they are offering. You will be amazed at how this deepens your connections and how much more you understand, not because you are smarter, but because you are actually there. This practice of full presence turns ordinary interactions into moments of genuine human connection. To actively build this muscle of attention, I have a simple but powerful challenge for you. Tomorrow, set a phone timer to go off at 3 random times during your day. When the alarm sounds, no matter what you are doing, let it be a signal to stop. For just 60 seconds, drop everything and conduct a quick inventory of your present moment. First, notice one thing you can see, really taking in its color, shape, and texture. Then, notice one thing you can hear, whether it's the distant hum of traffic or the sound of your own breathing. Finally, notice one physical sensation, like the feeling of your feet on the floor or the fabric of your shirt against your skin. This 60-second exercise is a hard reset for your mind. It yanks you out of the abstract world of thought and plants you firmly back into the tangible, sensory reality of the here and now. Each time you do this, you are strengthening your ability to choose where your mind resides, reclaiming your life from the pull of yesterday and tomorrow, and finding a profound sense of calm in the only time that truly exists, now. Life is long if you know how to use it. That arresting statement from the Roman philosopher Seneca cuts directly against the grain of our modern lament that there simply aren't enough hours in the day. But what if the problem isn't the quantity of our time, but the quality of our choices within it? The Stoics viewed time as the one truly non-renewable asset we are given. You can recover lost money, you can mend a broken relationship, you can regain your health, but a moment once past is gone forever, utterly and completely. This understanding forms the bedrock of our 22nd habit, which is to treat your time with the fierce protectiveness of a guardian of a sacred treasure. Every minute you fritter away on trivial pursuits, on mindless scrolling, on gossip, or on worry about things outside your control is not just a neutral act, it is a subtle but real form of self-harm. You are literally taking the finite substance of your life and setting it on fire. Conversely, every moment you invest in your growth, in strengthening your character, in serving others, or in deepening your understanding of the world is an act of true wealth creation, building a fortune of wisdom and purpose that no one can ever take from you. Seneca's brilliant essay on the shortness of life is a masterpiece on this very theme. He observes with stunning clarity that it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a great deal of it. He writes, "Life is long enough, and a sufficiently generous amount has been given to us for the highest achievements if it were all well invested. But when it is wasted in heedless luxury and spent on no good activity, we are forced at last by death's final constraint to realize that it has passed away before we knew it was passing." His words are a stark diagnosis of our condition. We act as if we have an endless supply of tomorrows, postponing what matters for a future that is not guaranteed, while the present moment slips through our fingers like sand. We fill our days with busyness, mistaking activity for achievement, and wonder why we feel so empty and unfulfilled at the end of the week. The Stoic practice here is to shift from being a passive consumer of time to becoming its active, intentional steward. This begins with a ruthless and honest audit of where your hours are actually going. For 1 week, I challenge you to keep a simple time log. You don't need a complex spreadsheet, just a notepad or a notes app will do. Every few hours, jot down what you have been doing and be brutally honest in your categorization. How many hours were spent in passive consumption, watching television, scrolling through social media, reading news headlines that only serve to outrage or depress you? How many hours were spent in active living, in deep work that challenges you, in meaningful conversation with loved ones, in learning a new skill, in physical exercise that strengthens your body, or in service to your community? The results of this audit are often shocking. We discover that we are donating huge chunks of our one precious life to activities that add no value to our character, our relationships, or our sense of purpose. We are, as Seneca would say, living a life of heedless luxury, even if that luxury is just the luxury of distraction. This audit is not meant to make you feel guilty, but to grant you clarity. It reveals the gap between how you say you want to live and how you are actually living. Once you see that gap, you can begin the empowering work of bridge building. This means becoming a fierce editor of your own schedule. It means learning to say no to requests and invitations that do not align with your core values, and yes to the activities that constitute a life well lived. It means recognizing that an hour spent reading philosophy or taking a walk in nature is a far wiser investment than an hour spent arguing with strangers online. It means protecting your morning hours for your most important work and your evening hours for genuine connection and restoration. To make this shift tangible and immediate, your task is to take the insight from your personal time audit and make one specific, concrete change. Identify one time-wasting activity that you will consciously replace with a more virtuous or purposeful one this week. Perhaps you've noticed you spend 30 minutes each evening scrolling through social media before bed, a habit that leaves you feeling drained and comparison-filled. Your commitment could be to replace those 30 minutes with reading a chapter from a book on Stoicism or history, or perhaps writing in your journal to reflect on the day. Maybe your audit reveals a long, gossip-filled coffee break at work that leaves you feeling agitated. Your replacement could be a solitary 10-minute walk outside to clear your head and practice mindfulness, or using that time to send a message of appreciation to a friend or family member. The specific swap is less important than the intentionality behind it. You are performing a powerful act of alchemy, transforming the lead of wasted time into the gold of a life lived with purpose. You are declaring through your actions that your time is your most precious resource, and you will no longer allow it to be stolen by the trivial and the unimportant. This is how you truly heed Seneca's call, not by wishing for more time, but by making the time you have count, moment by deliberate moment. The same person who flatters you today may insult you tomorrow. Your value remains unchanged. This paradox lies at the heart of the final, and perhaps one of the most liberating habits for emotional balance. We live in a world that constantly tries to measure us, to assign us a score based on our latest performance, our appearance, or our social status. It's incredibly easy to get hooked on the positive reviews, to let a compliment send our spirits soaring, and to feel the sting of criticism as a deep personal wound. This emotional ping-pong is exhausting. Your sense of self-worth becomes a yo-yo, jerked up and down by the unpredictable opinions of everyone around you. The Stoic habit of accepting both praise and blame with equanimity is the practice of cutting that string. It is the conscious decision to anchor your identity not in the fickle weather of external opinion, but in the solid ground of your own internal character and reasoned judgment. This doesn't mean becoming cold or unfeeling. It means achieving a profound stability where you can acknowledge feedback without letting it define you. The ancient teacher Epictetus, who was born a slave and thus knew a thing or two about being judged by his station rather than his character, gave the perfect instruction for this. He said, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not make excuses about what is said of you, but answer, 'He was ignorant of my other faults, else he would not have mentioned these alone.'" This is more than just a witty retort. It is a complete reframing of the entire concept of criticism. It reminds you that your worth is not on trial. Any single piece of feedback, positive or negative, is merely a tiny, incomplete snapshot of your entire being, filtered through another person's own biases, moods, and limited perspective. When you receive a glowing performance review at work, it feels wonderful. There's a natural surge of pride and validation. The Stoic approach is not to suppress that feeling, but to observe it with mindful detachment. You can appreciate the recognition, you can feel grateful for the acknowledgement of your hard work, but you consciously avoid internalizing it as the ultimate truth of your worth. You recognize that this review, however positive, is an external event. It does not make you a good person. Your character and your consistent efforts do that. The review is simply a pleasant data point along your journey. Now consider the opposite scenario. You receive a harsh, perhaps even unfairly critical performance review. The initial reaction might be one of defensiveness, anger, or a crushing sense of inadequacy. This is where the Stoic habit becomes your shield. You apply the same filter. This criticism, however painful, is also an external event. It is one person's or one committee's opinion formed under specific circumstances. It does not make you a bad or incapable person. Your value is internal and constant. From this place of calm detachment, you can then perform a crucial act of discernment. You can sift through the criticism with reason, asking yourself the Stoic questions. Is there any useful truth here that I can use for my growth? Is this pointing to a skill I can improve or a blind spot I was unaware of? If so, you accept that specific, actionable insight with gratitude, as you would accept a tool from a well-intentioned, if clumsy, teacher. The rest, the unfair generalizations, the personal jabs, the tone, you can let fall away, recognizing it as the noise that comes from the other person's own ignorance or unresolved issues, just as Epictetus suggested. The goal is to become like a sturdy tree in the wind. The wind, whether it is the gentle breeze of praise or the harsh gale of blame, blows around you. You may sway slightly, but your roots, which are your core principles and your self-knowledge, hold you firmly in place. You do not get carried away by the gentle breeze, nor are you uprooted by the storm. Your stability comes from within. To begin integrating this profound level of emotional independence, try a simple but powerful mental exercise this week. The next time someone pays you a genuine compliment, instead of deflecting it or letting it inflate your ego, practice pausing and mentally saying thank you. Acknowledge the kindness or the observation, and then let the sentiment pass through you without sticking. Do not use it to build a larger story about your own superiority. Then, the next time you receive a piece of criticism, even a minor, offhand comment, practice the exact same ritual. Pause and mentally say thank you. This is not an agreement with the criticism. It is an acknowledgement that the feedback has been offered. This single, consistent response creates a powerful psychological buffer. It trains your brain to treat both praise and blame as equivalent forms of external data, not as verdicts on your soul. By mentally thanking both the flatterer and the critic, you reclaim your sovereignty. You are the judge of your own character, and you alone hold the gavel. This is the final piece of the puzzle, the habit that allows you to move through the world with an unshakable core, immune to the dizzying highs of flattery and the devastating lows of censure, truly master of your own emotional destiny. And so we reach the end of our journey through these 23 hidden habits, a comprehensive toolkit for the mind that stretches from your first waking thought to your final reflection before sleep. It might feel like a lot to take in, but if we step back, we can see these practices naturally organize themselves into three powerful, overlapping spheres of influence. First, there are the internal practices, the private disciplines you cultivate within the quiet of your own mind. This is where you build the foundation, through the morning premeditation of evils that inoculates you against the day's surprises, the mindful pause that creates a sacred space between trigger and response, the evening review that turns your experiences into wisdom, and the profound clarity that comes from journaling and mastering your inner dialogue. These are your daily drills, the mental push-ups that strengthen your core resilience. Then we have the grand perspective shifts, the mental lenses that completely reframe how you see the world and your place in it. This is where you practice the dichotomy of control, drawing that crucial boundary around what is truly yours to command. It's where you zoom out to the cosmic view from above, seeing your troubles in their true, small proportion, and where you learn to not just accept but love your fate, seeing every obstacle as the very path forward. It's where you contemplate impermanence to prioritize what matters and value your time as the non-renewable resource it is. These shifts are like adjusting the focus on a camera. The world itself doesn't change, but your entire experience of it becomes clearer and more manageable. Finally, we come to the social virtues, the habits that extend your inner peace outward into the world, transforming your relationships and your sense of purpose. This is where you respond to provocation with unexpected kindness, act for the common welfare, and cultivate a felt sense of interconnectedness with all of humanity. It's where you learn to accept both praise and criticism with the same steady hand, and focus on the virtue of your actions rather than the external outcomes. These are the habits that ensure your inner strength doesn't become a fortress of isolation, but a wellspring of compassion and service that nourishes everyone around you. What becomes undeniably clear when we look at them this way is that emotional balance is not a personality trait you're either born with or without. It is a skill. It is the practical, attainable result of these consistent, often hidden daily habits. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing you have trained your mind to meet reality with reason, with courage, and with a deep, unwavering compassion for yourself and others. This is the tranquility that Marcus Aurelius spoke of, the peace that comes not from a life without challenges, but from a soul that is aligned with its own nature. He wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." Each time you practice one of these habits, you are choosing the color you wish to become. You are dipping the fabric of your consciousness into the dye of wisdom, of resilience, of virtue, until that color becomes permanent, until a calm and reasoned response becomes your default setting, no matter what storms may rage outside. The prospect of integrating 23 new habits can feel overwhelming, so I want to leave you with the most practical advice the Stoics themselves would offer: start small. Don't try to rebuild your entire mental operating system in a single day. Look over this list and for the next month, choose just one. Perhaps it's the evening review, taking 5 minutes before bed to learn from your day. Maybe it's practicing the mindful pause before you send that next email. It could be as simple as committing to a 5-minute gratitude walk each day. Pick the one that resonates most deeply with you right now, the one that feels like it addresses your most immediate need. Focus on that single habit with all your intention for 30 days. Let it become automatic, let it become a part of you. Then, and only then, consider adding a second. This is how you build a life of profound emotional balance, not through a single heroic effort, but through the quiet, cumulative power of small, consistent, daily actions. The path of the Stoic is a lifelong journey, and every step, no matter how small, moves you forward. If you found this guide valuable and want to continue this journey of practical philosophy, consider subscribing to the channel for more wisdom you can immediately use in your own life. And I would genuinely love to hear from you. This is where our community grows. In the comments below, tell me this: which one of these 23 habits will you commit to trying first? Sharing your intention is a powerful way to solidify your commitment and connect with fellow travelers on this path. Thank you for your time and your attention.